It all started with 5 words. Anyone can print business cards. That's what the flight attendant said to me, her voice flat, her eyes scanning my crimson blazer like I was wearing someone else's skin. 5 words spoken like a warning, like an accusation, like I didn't belong in line for seat 1A. She didn't know she was speaking to the CEO of a $2.3 billion tech conglomerate. Didn't know that in my briefcase beneath a sleek MacBook and a folder of signed merger agreements sat documentation that could buy out half the companies sponsoring the Miami Tech Summit. But none of that mattered in that moment. Because to her, I was just a black woman in a designer suit standing where I wasn't supposed to be. The boarding pass in my hand said otherwise, but her face didn't budge. She looked at me, then back at the screen, then back at me again, like maybe the computer had made a mistake. Like maybe I'd slipped through the cracks of her mental image of who belonged in first class. My name is Vanessa Jordan. Seat 1A. Purchased 3 weeks ago through my company's travel account, I said calmly. Too calmly. She blinked. Well, seat 1A is typically reserved for our premium executive members. She said, her voice dipped in sugar, but her meaning sharp as glass. And I don't see you in that system. Behind me, I could feel the weight of the other passengers, eyes darting phones, slowly lifting. A man in a gray suit cleared his throat. A mom with 2 kids shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't my first time being questioned, not by a long shot. I've been mistaken for an assistant in boardrooms, where I was the only one signing the contracts. I've been asked to fetch coffee at meetings I was leading, and now I was being asked without being asked if I could really afford the seat I'd paid for. I opened my briefcase deliberately, methodically, and laid out my credentials like exhibits in a courtroom. Business card, Vanessa Jordan, CEO, Jordan Dynamics. Bank letter, $120 million corporate line of credit. The front page of that morning's San Francisco Chronicle, my face above a headline that read, Tech Titan finalizes historic merger. The flight attendant, her name tag read, Kristen, didn't say anything, but the color drained from her face like someone pulled the plug. Still, she tried to hold the line. Ma'am, I just need to confirm with my supervisor. Sometimes tickets purchased by assistants don't come through properly. I smiled, but it wasn't warm. Are you suggesting I'm impersonating myself? Or that your system is more trustworthy than the legal documents in front of you? No answer. Just a call over the intercom. Her supervisor, a woman named Melanie, joined the party with a tight bun and tighter expression. Melanie scanned my ID, my boarding pass, my business card. Then she said the magic words, anyone can print business cards. That's when something in me cracked. I'd spent 15 years building my company from nothing, eating instant noodles in a 1-bedroom apartment while writing code on a secondhand laptop. I'd mortgaged my car, drained my grandmother's life insurance payout, and worked 18-hour days for a decade to turn an idea into a global brand. And yet, to them, I was just another fraud waiting to be exposed. I leaned in, my voice steady. You're right. Anyone can print business cards. But not everyone builds a company that employs 30,000 people and powers the tech infrastructure of half the Fortune 500. Not everyone negotiates mergers worth more than your airline's annual revenue. Not everyone lands on the cover of Forbes by age 38. Then I looked around, raised my voice just enough to be heard by the dozen or so passengers pretending not to listen. Would anyone else like to see proof I belong in seat 1A? Silence. A woman in a Chanel jacket lowered her eyes. A man in a Patagonia vest nodded subtly. Melanie tried to salvage the moment. Miss Jordan, we'd be happy to offer you our premium executive lounge while we sort this out. Sort what out, I asked. The fact that I don't match your mental picture of who belongs in first class. Another pause, another beat. Then I said it loud and clear. I will be boarding this flight sitting in seat 1A. And when I land in Miami, I will be making some calls, starting with your airline's board of directors. That was the moment someone behind me started recording. The video, I later found out, hit 3 million views before we even took off. And I did board that flight. I sat down in 1A, opened my laptop, and tried to focus on my presentation for the Miami summit. But my mind kept drifting back to my grandmother's porch in Alabama, where she used to tell me, "Baby, some folks will always see your skin before they see your work. That's why you've got to make your work undeniable." 45 minutes into the flight, Kristen came by with water. Her hands shook when she placed the glass on my tray table. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't answer. Not out of spite, but because I wasn't sure what to say to a woman who'd already made up her mind about me before I even opened my mouth. Later, during turbulence, she stumbled and I caught her before she fell. "Thanks," she muttered, embarrassed. "That's what humans do," I replied, staring out the window. And then she asked me a question I didn't expect. "How did you build it?" "Your company." I told her about the ramen noodles, the sleepless nights, the rejections, the investors who laughed at me until they saw the numbers. I told her about the time a photographer at Forbes asked if I was the assistant to the real CEO. And slowly, quietly, she started to listen. Not nodding out of politeness, but really listening. By the end of the flight, she said something else I didn't expect. "I know an apology isn't enough, but I'm sorry. Not just for today. For all the ways I didn't know I was part of the problem." I didn't forgive her right then. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a door that might open if someone's willing to knock the right way. But I told her this: redemption isn't cheap. If you want it, you have to earn it. When I landed, I had a choice. I could have buried her career. The video alone was enough to get her fired. Sponsors were calling, media outlets begging for interviews, activist groups demanding action. Instead, I held a press conference. I told the world what happened, but I also told them what happened after. That Kristen sat beside me during a bumpy flight and listened. That she owned her mistake not just with words, but with a desire to change. That maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a story about revenge, but about responsibility. People didn't know what to do with that. Some praised me for grace. Others dragged me for not going nuclear. But I didn't care. Because canceling someone doesn't fix the system that taught them to think like that in the first place. We don't need more headlines. We need more healing. A month later, Kristen enrolled in a real diversity training program, 6 months in person, not some click-through corporate module. She now runs bias awareness workshops for new airline hires. Not because I forgave her, but because she did the work to deserve another shot. And me. My company's stock bounced back. But more importantly, my grandmother would have been proud. And that's worth more than seat 1A ever was. Now let me ask you something. If someone wronged you publicly, humiliated you in front of the world, would you fight back? Or would you help them become better? Drop your thoughts below about prejudice, power, redemption. I want to hear your story. Because maybe, just maybe, the next time we board a plane, we'll all sit in the same section of humanity. And hey, don't forget to subscribe. This journey's far from over.